Yo, what is up guys, it's me Zachary, back bringing you some more NBA news and updates. With the playoffs officially starting, you guys already know that we have so much to talk about today, like so much, so let's not waste any time, let's get right into it. Let's go. For our first story of the day, even though the Sacramento Kings literally just fired their old head coach, they already have a new one, as reports came out yesterday saying that the Sacramento Kings and Luke Walton have agreed to a 4-year deal in which Luke Walton will now become the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. And not only did this happen right after the Kings fired Dave Yeager, but it happened even sooner after the Lakers and Luke Walton agreed to part ways. This literally happened just hours after we got reports out saying that Luke Walton was leaving the Los Angeles Lakers. So I have no doubt in my mind that Luke Walton left the Lakers knowing that he already had a job waiting for him in Sacramento. Anyways, Steve Kerr, head coach of the Golden State Warriors, who once upon a time was sort of a mentor to Luke Walton when Luke Walton was an assistant coach on the Golden State Warriors, said he was happy to hear that Luke Walton has already landed back on his feet, saying happy for Luke. That was quick. Great opportunity though, really nice young team. I thought Dave Yeager did a tremendous job there the past few years and they've established a really good foundation, so it was a hell of an opportunity for him. Luke Walton, in the couple of years that he spent with the Lakers, did have the short end of the stick. There was always some type of drama going on surrounding the organization. When Lonzo Ball was drafted, it was LeVar Ball trying to get Luke Walton fired. And then the year after that, LeBron James came to town. And then there were always rumors about Luke Walton potentially being fired all season long. So his new job with Sacramento, in my eyes, will be Luke Walton's real first attempt at being a head coach of a team in the NBA without all of the drama and distractions that LA provides. For our next story of the day, it's actually a pretty good feel-good story revolving around former NBA player Greg Oden. Now, we all know that Greg Oden's NBA career was cut tragically short due to many different knee injuries. He was taken first overall by the Portland Trail Blazers back in the 2007 draft, the same draft that Kevin Durant was selected number 2 overall by the Seattle Supersonics at the time. And even though he was supposed to be the next big man, like I said, due to injuries, that never panned out for Greg Oden, playing in just a total of 105 NBA games with career averages of 8 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks per game. So not the best overall stats, but if you did need any convincing that if he was healthy, that Greg Oden would have made a fantastic basketball player, look no further than his second season in the league, when he only played in 21 games and only got around 24 minutes per game, but he still averaged 11 points, 8.5 rebounds, and almost 2.5 blocks per game, and that was with him unhealthy, barely being able to play. So just imagine what he could have done if he was able to play and was healthy. The sky really would have been the limit for Greg Oden, which is why personally I don't think it's right to call him a bust. I mean, calling Greg Oden a bust is kind of similar to calling a player like Brandon Roy a bust. Neither one of these guys were a bust, it's just the NBA didn't necessarily pan out for them, not for any fault of their own, just because their bodies gave out. Anyways, like I was saying, we got a pretty moving story out regarding Greg Oden. As an article was just released which detailed how after the NBA, Greg Oden essentially became an alcoholic and would drink away his days while watching YouTube clips of himself crying to how it all went wrong, with Oden himself saying, "You just keep on numbing yourself with alcohol, trying not to think about it." And then due to that, he claimed that he would spend a lot of his time in front of a toilet throwing up, including him throwing up every time after he ate a meal. And that's not the only struggle that Greg Oden had to deal with after his time in the NBA, as a few years back he also ran into some problems with the law, as he was arrested on charges of battery after punching his ex-girlfriend in the face, with police officers saying that there was swelling in the nose and lacerations to the forehead and the nose areas of the victim's face. And quick side note, to the person who was accusing Kristaps Porzingis of doing something similar not too long ago, did you hear that? Lacerations of the face, there was blood everywhere, and that was supposedly after Greg Oden just punched her once. A person who's accusing Kristaps Porzingis said that he punched her repeatedly in the face. repeatedly. Does anything else really need to be said in terms of that? I think not. I rest my case. Anyways, back to Greg Oden. After that incident, he had officially hit rock bottom. Man had been arrested and was an alcoholic. Pretty much at the end of his rope, he was giving up on life. However, that changed quickly when he found out that he was going to have a daughter. As in 2016, Greg Oden decided that he was going to clean himself up, get back to Ohio State University and finish his degree so he could set a good example for his daughter. It's as simple as this. How can I tell her to go to school and get an education if I do not get one? I want to be that example. Also saying, of course, that his biggest regret in life was the incident that he had with his ex-girlfriend. My biggest regret might be my issue with the law a few years back. Just that whole entire situation. I wish that never happened. And as for what he's doing right now that he's clean and no longer drinking and has no more criminal record charges, well, Greg Oden is now back with Ohio State University as a student coach. He's deciding to help others become better at the game of basketball and just being a great mentor for all of the guys down at Ohio State's basketball program. So I'm really happy for Greg Oden that he found a life for himself outside of the NBA. The man essentially lost everything that he had worked so hard for when he got injured so many times and can never play in the NBA again. Spent his entire life training up to that point, was supposed to be the next big thing, only for injuries to take that all away from. And it's not hard to see how that could easily lead someone to start drinking like Greg Oden did. But even though it led him to that lifestyle, it takes a much bigger and much stronger man to pull himself out of that lifestyle just to be a good example for both his daughter and then all of the other guys down at Ohio State's basketball program. So I think even though he's clearly not a perfect person, major respect should still be put upon Greg Oden's name for him striving to be the best person that he can be. For our next story of the day, the Philadelphia 76ers just lost home court advantage to the Brooklyn Nets. Yep, the first game of the 2019 NBA playoffs resulted in a major upset, with the Nets taking home the 111-102 win behind D'Angelo Russell and Karis LeVert combining for 49 points. And things did get ugly in this game a couple of times. And the first time was actually the Philadelphia 76ers home crowd booing Ben Simmons after he stepped to the line and missed a free throw. Yeah, they're booing the second-year guard, Ben Simmons, who was the Rookie of the Year last year and is most likely going to win Rookie of the Year this year as well. And after the game, Ben Simmons clearly did not take too kindly from the boos from the home crowd, as he said after the game that if you're going to boo, then make sure you stay on that side.
I mean, if you're gonna boo, then stay on that side. So I feel if you're a Sixers fan, you're gonna boo, stay on that side.
AKA Ben Simmons says, if you're going to boo now, make sure that you keep booing even though we're winning. Kind of saying if you're booing, then you're not a real Philadelphia 76ers fan. Clearly not what Philadelphia 76ers fans might have wanted to hear, but it's the answer that Ben Simmons gave. And Simmons' game definitely wasn't anything special at all, finishing with just 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. So Sixers fans clearly looking for more out of Ben Simmons, especially considering how he played in the playoffs last year. They do not want a repeat performance of that. Anyways, that was just the first bit of drama surrounding this game. And the second bit comes when Amir Johnson was spotted on the bench checking his cell phone with the Sixers down big. Now, initially, as you can guess, this drew a lot of backlash, with people saying, how are you going to be checking your phone on the bench during a playoff game, even worse with your team down? This is 100% inexcusable and a total lack of professionalism from Amir Johnson. I mean, that's what people were saying up until Joel Embiid let us all know the real reason as to why Amir Johnson was checking his phone. As according to Joel Embiid, Amir Johnson's daughter was extremely sick and Amir Johnson himself was just trying to check in on her, which is more than a legitimate excuse, but at the end of the day, I guess it does violate the rules and regulations as to no cell phones during an NBA game, which in the end gave the Sixers no choice but to fine Amir Johnson. And Amir Johnson, after getting fined, had this to say: I take full responsibility and will accept the consequences of my actions. I apologize to my teammates, the 76ers organization, and the fans for the distraction that I have caused. I kind of feel bad for Amir Johnson in this case. His daughter was extremely sick and he was just trying to do what any good parent should do, check up on their kid. And the fact that he has to come out with an apology like this and pay a fine, I don't necessarily think it's that big of a deal, which he should have had to, but he did violate the regulations and the rules of the league, and they're not going to allow them to bend for Amir Johnson, because if they bend the rules for him, they got to bend the rules for everyone else too. Still though, this wasn't the biggest deal after all. For our next story of the day, the Brooklyn Nets weren't the only team to cause an upset in game 1, as the Orlando Magic were also able to pull off the major upset over the Toronto Raptors as well, as Orlando comes away with the 104-101 win. And I think to most people, this may have even been considered a bigger upset than the Nets beating the Sixers. And DJ Augustine was huge for Orlando in this one, even hitting the go-ahead 3 in the final seconds that would eventually give Orlando the win. DJ Augustine finishing with 25 points on 9 of 13 shooting, while on the other hand, Kyle Lowry just turned in one of the all-time worst performances of an all-star caliber player in the playoffs, as he finished the game with a whopping 0 points. Yeah, 0 points for Kyle Lowry on 0 of 7 shooting from the field. He did have both 7 rebounds and 8 assists and was a plus 11 in the box score, but at the end of the day, 0 points is 0 points. And for a guy who is supposed to be a leader of the Toronto Raptors in the playoffs, that's unacceptable. But Kyle Lowry said after the game that he wasn't shaken by this loss at all, and he still has major confidence in the fact that the Toronto Raptors, when they play well, are a really good team. We know we are good, and this is game 1. We've got to make sure we know who we are and execute what we can do. When we do what we're supposed to do, we are really good. And for the Raptors, even though this is a completely different team that they've had in year past, even with a new head coach, this loss does kind of stir up some bad memories for the Toronto Raptors players that had been there for the past few years, as well as for the Toronto Raptors fans. We all know that the Toronto Raptors have struggled in the playoffs for the past few years, even though they've been a great regular season team. So this loss to the Orlando Magic doesn't do the Raptors any favors in reminding people of the Raptors past. So after this loss, I pretty much think game 2 is a must win for the Toronto Raptors. If they lose game 2, all hell is going to break loose. Next up in the news, well, the LA Clippers really did draw the short end of the stick in the playoffs this year, didn't they? No doubt in my mind that they could have at least competed with any other team in the Western Conference, but a matchup with the Golden State Warriors for this Clippers team is a battle of 5 All-Stars versus 0 All-Stars. And that resulted in the Warriors coming away with the 121-104 win over the Clippers. Stephen Curry making it look as easy as ever with 38 points, including hitting 8 of his 12 shots from deep, also finishing with 15 rebounds as well as 7 assists. Things did get chippy later on in this game though between Kevin Durant and Patrick Beverley. The two of them had been going at it pretty much the entire game, and it ultimately resulted in both of them getting ejected from the game with around 4 minutes to go left in the 4th quarter. That's just prime Patrick Beverley for you. I don't know what else to say. That's literally what the man does. That's how he earns his living in the NBA. And Kevin Durant pretty much said the exact same thing after the game, as this is what he had to say about Patrick Beverley. You know what he's going to bring to the table, just the physicality, mucking up the game a little bit with his physicality, his talking, everything. That's what he brings to each team that he plays on. That's his identity. For me, I know this coming into this series. I thought it was fun tonight. I mean, Patrick Beverley is going to be Patrick Beverley. That's just who he is. He's one of those players that you're only going to like if he's on your team. And if your favorite team is playing against Patrick Beverley and the team that he's on, you are going to hate Patrick Beverley. That's just how it works. By the way though, congratulations to Stephen Curry, as he did pass Ray Allen for the most 3-point field goals made in NBA playoff history in this game, as Stephen Curry already has 286 made threes to his name in the playoffs. And for what will actually be our final story of the day, the San Antonio Spurs beat the Denver Nuggets in Denver in their first game of this series, 101-96. And I don't know if you can call this an upset, because on one hand you have the Spurs and Greg Popovich, who don't know what it's like not to be in the playoffs and have all the playoff experience in the world. And on the other hand, you have a young Denver Nuggets team who, yes, finished with the 2nd best record in the West, but they don't know what the playoffs are like. They have little to no playoff experience. So the experience is definitely favoring the Spurs in this series, and it will be interesting to see whether or not this young Nuggets team can mature fast enough in the playoffs to beat the Spurs in this series. As always though, the Spurs Spurs used a well-balanced attack to come away with the win. DeRozan finished the game with 18 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. That is going to do it for today's video though, guys. Hope you did enjoy it, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, as well as make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with post notifications turned on so you can stay up to date with everything that goes on in the NBA. And it's the playoffs, and you know what the playoffs mean. You guys can expect to see me here every day if there is a game. If there's going to be a game, you can expect to find me right back here covering it and everything else that happened in the NBA the very next day. So definitely make sure that you are subscribed. It's the playoffs. It's time to get down to business. That being said though, you guys already know that you are really the real MVPs, but until tomorrow, keep getting the buckets, Team SDC, and I'm out of here. Peace.